Today I want to do a video about this Avondale Audio Power Amplifier. It's for a very good client of mine by the name of Alex, and I'd like to take you on a walkthrough of the layout, construction, and briefly some of the ideas behind this build. Clearly you can see in the picture, or clearly I hope you can see in the picture here, an Avondale Audio NCC 300 power amplifier module. Hopefully you can see that. It is set inside a Naim Amp 180 case, and it is using a relatively, I say relatively standard Naim Amp 250 power supply. As you can see, the amplifier was originally converted by Avondale, and it's subsequently been converted again by myself with all new reused pre-loved components. As you can see there, people that know these amplifiers will recognise that instantly as a Holden and Fisher Transformer. It's around about 500 VA, probably a little bit more than that because it's one of the big fat ones, and they're very popular. People like the sound of the Holden and Fisher. Has the standard bridge rectifiers there and a couple of Kendale capacitors there. Standard IEC input socket, standard Naim output sockets, uses a standard Naim Amp 250 input socket, an XLR, and in the corner here we've got the original, if I can just show that, the original Naim logo light. Okay, that shows the Avondale Audio NCC 300 label. A little bit about the NCC itself. In this guise, it's putting out well over 100 watts per channel. If I can start to point out some aspects with this screwdriver, which we can't see. There it is. Here, boxed off rather neatly, is what we call the front end. This is the first stage. Signal comes in to this stage, and the front end is powered by these two separate regulators, one here and one here, and these are this is onboard regulation, part of the amplifier architecture. So the regulators smooth the DC supply for the front end here. Secondly, we've got what Les Wolstenholme of Avondale Audio calls the grunt section. Looks like a small electricity substation, I always say. In a way, it kind of is. So the front end drives the grunt, which is here, and the front end has its own onboard regulation, which means that this very sensitive, delicate front end gets the purest DC from these regulators. Of course, the whole amplifier is powered, or is run rather, from the reservoir capacitors here, which smooth the DC further that comes off the transformer. So to walk through it, AC comes in here, and in the case of this amplifier, because it's going to America, it's 120 volts AC, and of course in the UK that's 220, 240 volts AC. Comes in through here, through the switch, after having come through the heat trip. So I'll say that again. So it comes in here, down this red wire here, through this red wire here. This is standard Naim, around the edge of the transformer. You see the wires again. Now under the amplifier boards here, about here, is the Naim heat trip. It's an Otter heat trip, and at about 70 degrees C, if everything gets too hot, on a standard Naim amplifier, any amplifier gets too hot, it should have a heat trip, and the heat trip will trip, open circuit, and then these wires cut off the AC coming into the amplifier. Anyway, that's not going to happen with this because it works very well. It doesn't get too hot. So in it comes here, AC coming in through the heat strip, back through the heat strip, back into the switch, through the switch, and then we switch on the primaries here in the transformer. Transformer's energized. Voltage comes out through here, through the bridge rectifiers, where it's rectified, so you get a very rough, bumpy DC coming out here, going into the smoothing capacitors here, which smooths off the any AC which is left on the rails. The rails then come into the amplifier here. If we look at this from a mono perspective, this is just one channel shown here, negative on the black wire, positive on the red wire. As you'll see here, you can see it just on the tip of there. Let me just point it out. There's a little jumper there, and this terminal is not used because this amplifier doesn't have pre-regulation. So the power runs down here through the jumper and into the second layer of into the first layer of regulation for the front end, to supply the front end, as I said previously, with a very smooth DC. So the front end of this amplifier, the delicate bit, is getting all that lovely smoothed positive and negative DC from the regulators here into the front end. This is then forwarded to the grunt, which gets the full output off the smoothed DC off the caps here. You can see it coming in there. And it comes off the amplifier and through speaker protection here. If this senses any DC on the line, it will switch the speakers off instantly and protect the speakers. So there's the speaker protection board. Fabulous piece of kit, the SPM2 Avondale Audio, made in England. Fabulous piece of kit. Very, very effective, and will fit any Naim NAP 250 amplifier that uses the spacing, classic Naim spacing, which you can see there, or it will fit any Naim amplifier that doesn't use that spacing, because Naim changed the spacing on some of the later models. But there's an Avondale speaker protection module for any case that you might be using. Here we have the signal input. I've lost my screwdriver again, there it is. Signal input coming in here, and on the other side, coming in there, and here's the input wiring for the signal. That earth there comes back to the star earthing, which is where it should be between the outputs on the caps there. So that is a view of a NAP 180 case with an NCC 300 amplifier in it from Avondale Audio. Needless to say, it sounds fabulous. And if you're interested in converting an old Naim amp, or any amplifier at all, or just want to buy a decent amp in any case that you require, I'd suggest you give Avondale a call, or myself, to discuss your options, of which there are very, very many. And there are very many upgrades from this basic design, which you could consider to construct yourself a very, very cost-effective solution to buying an amplifier. Sound quality of these is phenomenal. Amazing value for money. I suggest you hear one as soon as you can. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. Thanks for staying with this video. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much indeed.